Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Drawback chess, where each player is assigned a random drawback, like Cowardly, where if your opponent captures you must move backwards, or Death Wish, where if you can move into check you must. My goal is to win 3 games. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, game number 1, we get the white pieces and our drawback is Cowering in Fear. You cannot move a piece of less value than one your opponent has taken. So if my opponent ever takes my queen, then I just can't move anything. So I think I have to play this really aggressively because again, if my opponent captures a high value piece, I basically can't move anything. Hence, I'm incentivized to keep a lot of pieces on the board. And that rings a bell because that is exactly one of the concepts that I follow when I sort of just follow my own playstyle, which is a very attacking playstyle, right? If you trade off a whole bunch of pieces, then there's no way for you to attack because there's no pieces left to use. So you want to keep a lot of pieces on the board. Now, the knight comes out to play, which is really quite terrifying because if I trade this off at all, then I am toast. So I'm just going to move the knight back to e1, maybe d3 and f4 to follow, and I really want to open up this line against f7. The sooner the better. Pawn comes out to h5. Let's just drop f4 on the board right now. If we trade off a pawn, then that just means that I can't move. Oh, that means I can't move any more pawns. Oh, I was gonna say that doesn't matter because pawns, they're just pawns. Bishop comes out to g4, but that would mean that all of these pieces are trapped back here, basically until the end of time, except for the knight, I guess. But anyways, we get bishop to g4, so we have bigger fish to fry, which is the fact that my queen is trapped, so the knight has to come back out to f3. Even if we trade those off, then it just is what it is at that point. Okay, queen comes out to d7, so they're gonna castle queenside, which I really don't want to allow. So if I take there though, then I can never move another pawn. This is so tricky. Okay, let's take on e5 first. I think I was sound in my original reasoning. I think I'm just way too slow. Okay, we'll take back. If I lose the rook, then the only thing for the rest of the game that I can move is the queen, and this is basically game over. My only hope at this point is to somehow solve the riddle of what my opponent's drawback is and take advantage of it with my singular piece. Okay, we get queenside castle on the board. Let's go queen to a3. With any luck, we get some silly back rank mate and wrap this guy up pretty quick. Okay, but instead the king shuffles over, and of course I can't move anything now. I can move my rook, but since I can't move any of these surrounding pieces, I might as well not be able to move it. I can only move my queen and my king, so let's get busy, Mr. King. Yep, come on, it's time to play. Who knows, maybe this will freak the opponent out and they'll think that I know something they don't. Oh, I just realized I hung the queen. I didn't even see that originally. Okay, either my king captures their king or it's game over anyway, so I might as well play king to d4 and see what's up. Okay, they take on b2 instead. I think they might just be torturing me because they could have easily captured there, unless that had to do with their drawback somehow, but somehow my king lives to see another day. Let's go king to b6. There's no way they let me go any further than that though. Is there? Bishop comes back? There's no shot. Surely they're just gonna take my king. Okay, with that, we do in fact lose game number 1. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Okay, we did in fact lose. Your opponent's drawback was diplomatic immunity. You can't capture a piece that has just moved unless that move was a capture. Oh wow, that's really interesting. That's why they couldn't take my king. Wow, admittedly, I had a better chance with the queen than I thought. I just blundered it outright way too early. Okay, with that, we lose game number 1. Let's go to move on with game number 2. Alright, game number 2, we get the white pieces again, and our drawback is Religious Dispute. If your opponent moves a bishop, you must move a bishop or lose. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is make it so that I can move a bishop. And second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try and trade off bishops as fast as possible. So let's get these bad boys developed. And that is basically going to be my obsession for the next couple of turns, is trade off these bishops. Because I will say, though, the big upside to a drawback like this is that once that is resolved, I basically don't have a drawback at that point, right? Unless my opponent promotes to a bishop in the late endgame or something. So let's go ahead and trade this off. I was kind of hoping I'd incentivize them to take because it would ruin my pawn structure, but it would get me one step closer to resolving my drawback. But no such luck. In any case, I'm going to play pawn to a3 with the idea of creating an escape square just in case we get something like knight to a5 trying to capture my bishop. On the other hand, though, I don't want to make it too obvious that I'm really trying to protect my bishops here. Right, pawn comes out to d5. I'm incentivized, I think, to keep the position open, so I'm going to take here. Knight takes back. Let's go knight to c3. We could even just enter an endgame, because if we enter an endgame, then obviously the bishops will have been traded off by then, and I will have 0 drawback on my hands. Let's go ahead and castle our king as well. Queen comes out to f6. I really need this bishop trade on the board sooner rather than later, because as soon as they start moving their bishop, I'm going to have to start moving mine as well. Let's go pawn to h3 to make sure they're not going to try bishop to g4 and cause me too many headaches. Because again, if they play something like bishop takes h3 and they see that I have to move my bishop, my drawback is going to become super obvious, not to mention it would be mate in a couple more moves. So let's get my king out of the way so that pawn is no longer pinned. Met with queen to h5. I think they really want to sacrifice this bishop, which is really bad news for me because as soon as they do, I don't even have the choice to take back and, defend myself because I'll have to move my own bishop. Instead, let's go knight back to h2, offer a decent queen trade. I think it's unlikely that they take here because the risk is extremely high that I just take a free queen. Unless they're totally sure that they know what my drawback is, but if they did, they'd just be moving their bishop around crazy style by now. Okay, queen shuffle's over. They have not given up on the kingside attack. I'm going to really insist, I think, that we trade off queens. Oh no, if I play this, queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, I'd have to move my bishop as well. But then I could take on f7, rook takes, and then I take back. Okay, that works for me. I lose a piece, but we enter an endgame where I have no drawback. So I think I'm okay with that. Okay, rook shuffle's over. Wow, they really don't want to trade. Okay, oh, if I take bishop takes, then I have to move my bishop and I'd reveal what my issue is here. You know what? Let's just keep it super aggressive. Pawn to f4. I'm offering them a queen trade, and if they're not willing to take it, then I'm going to create an attack that will incentivize them to trade off queens. Okay, pawn to e4. Ooh, I wonder if their drawback is the open file drawback, where if there's an open file, you lose the game. I'm going to take here. If it is, the game will end immediately. Okay, it's not. I'm not totally mad about that though, because that was a totally fine trade, I think. Queen comes down to e4. Ooh, I have the chance to get rid of this bishop right now and then just play the rest of the game down a queen. But I don't know if my drawback is dramatic enough to merit that sort of desperation. I could play bishop d3 as well. If bishop takes, and then I could end trading off fairly, which I think I'm happier with. So let's go bishop to d3. If they do take my queen, I take theirs. Again, they've moved their bishop, I've moved mine as well, so everything seems normal, but I will get my drawback off my back without any downside, basically. Okay, queen goes back to e7. I really don't want them to move their bishop. You know what? Let's thug this out. I could sacrifice my queen and play the rest of the game without a drawback, but truth is I'd be down a queen and I don't like being down a queen, so let's go pawn to f5. As long as anything practical their bishop can do, my bishop can counter, I really don't care. Oh, knight to e5! They're gonna trade off my bishop, aren't they? And when they trade off my bishop, I lose immediately. Okay, I have to go bishop back to e2. I know that it gives away what my drawback is, but the problem is if they ever take and I take back, and they just develop their bishop like a totally normal human being, I instantly lose the game. So I have to give away my queen. But with any luck, their drawback stops them from— oh! They don't even take my queen! Oh, Lord knows what their drawback is. That's horrendous. Okay, let's go queen to d4, get my queen out of danger. Queen takes on c3. What? Okay, I can take that. Is there a drawback like a Botez Gambit sort of thing? Oh, they resigned. Okay, with that, we win our second game for our first victory. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Okay, you won. Your opponent's drawback was you best not miss. If you end your turn checking your opponent, you must capture their king on the next move or lose. Okay, which has nothing to do with queen takes c3. So with that, we just win game number 2 for no apparent reason. Let's go to move on to game number 3. All right, game number 3, white pieces again, and our drawback is friendly fire can only move to squares defended by your other pieces. Okay, we have had this drawback in the past. It basically requires you to move super slowly throughout the entire game, because again, you can only move to squares that are defended by other pieces. So for instance, this bishop gets nuked basically because I can only go as far as e3 because none of these squares are defended, which is really quite lame, but also kind of a reason to be super aggressive again. Okay, this is also just me leaning into my own play style, but I really love playing aggressive chess, and I feel like very rewarded when you're playing drawback chess, because the more pressure you apply, the more uncomfortable decisions the opponent has to make, and then they either reveal what their drawback is or they just lose. Let's continue to advance, and I also want my opponent to think that I have a whole bunch of threats, even though realistically this pawn can't even take that knight. I want them to think that it can, so they have to move that knight away and start making uncomfortable decisions. Plus, now that I'm grabbing all of this space, there are many more squares that my pieces protect, which means those are now squares that I can move to as well. Oh, bishop to g4. Okay, danger levels, hitting my queen back. Let's go bishop to e2. I'm curious why they felt the need to play this instead of just moving the knight. Might have just been an artistic decision. Okay, they take back. Let's take on e2. In their heads, hopefully we're still threatening the knight. Oh, goodness. Okay, pawn to e6. Okay, a minor drawback to my attempt at scaring the opponent is the fact that I actually can't take that knight. Now, the opponent won't know, hopefully, why exactly I can't take that knight, but they will know that I can't take it. Let's go ahead and target this queen next. Now, with any luck, maybe they'll lower their guard a little bit, and that will make it so that I grab some free material because they think they understand my drawback when they don't. Pawn comes down to h6. Let's just keep developing our pieces. Okay, they finally move the knight back. Let's go a4. I think I'm just going to be super greedy and just grab a whole bunch of space. Pawn comes down to a5. What to do next? Probably shouldn't castle, since that would go directly into check. And in this variant, in this website Drawback Chess, you can castle because most of these drawbacks are king capture drawbacks. Let's just go d4. Let's just protect the entire diagonal and then castle. Bishop comes down to b4. I think that's okay. We can castle anyways. If bishop takes, I just take back. Oh, I can't take back because I don't have multiple defenders. I need my queen on d3 immediately. Okay, hopefully they don't realize the absolute grave error that I've just committed. Okay, pawn comes up to c5. That's kind of okay. Let's go queen to d3 anyways, defending multiple times. Hopefully that looks like a natural way to defend d4 because now I have 2 defenders and there's only 1 extra attacker after the pawn takes. Okay, we do in fact get kingside castles, which means we have to some extent weathered the storm. Let's move my king over before this pin becomes a problem. And I think what I'm going to do is just full commit to a kingside attack. And if they devour my queenside in that process, then so be it. Okay, I'm going to take back on d4 though. I dare them to take back. Obviously I can't take back, but I don't think that they know quite yet my drawback that well. Okay, instead they play knight to c5, targeting the queen. Let's move my queen over to g3. And again, I'm full sending this kingside attack, so I want lots and lots of coordinations against the king, because say for instance I do get my bishop to h6. If I play queen g7, the king can just take, and they might do that just out of desperado, and then I can't take back because nobody else is looking at g7. Knight comes down to e4. I cannot take that. Okay, that is terrible news because now if I move over, the knight can take, and they're definitely going to find out. There's no way for me to recapture. Okay, this attack better get started sooner rather than later. Let's just play queen to h3 and just give it away totally for free because they have no specific reason to think that I did anything but just blunder the bishop, right? Okay, they do in fact take. Let's go up to f3. I really need an attack like today. They do in fact take, we'll take back. They're down to 30 seconds. I'm hoping the time pressure here will kick in as well. And after something like g4, g5, they'll be left with no choice but to make a hopefully silly mistake. Okay, f6, g4. All I'm interested in is opening up as much of the king side as possible. They do in fact take, slide the rook over. If the queen takes, it's not automatically checkmate. I have 2 pieces defending the rook, but bishop to d4 is kind of a problem. Okay, rook to g2 then. Down to 20 seconds. I'm really hoping the time pressure here does me a huge favor, does some heavy lifting, because this attack is not concrete and I have very few pieces to attack with, especially considering I need the attacks to be overlapping. But the opponent doesn't know that, and they only have 14 seconds to figure out a way to get out of there. Okay, they're down to 7 seconds. Ooh, do I take right now? I think I do. I take because they might just move the king over instead. Down to 1 second, but what? The opponent resigned? Okay, I guess their drawback kicked in. I thought I was getting them because of the time pressure, but I guess their drawback was just horrible. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Okay, you won. Your opponent's drawback was fixation. Once you move a particular pawn, you cannot move a different pawn until you move a non-pawn piece. And once you move a non-pawn piece, you have to move another pawn. Wow. So they couldn't move their king. I was just going to take their king on the next turn. Okay, again, pretty good example of how you're very incentivized to attack the opponent because oftentimes the drawback has to do with the king or check or moving your king into check or not being able to castle or something that, you know, messes with the king's safety. So even though our drawback was harder, it wasn't that much harder. It was only marginally harder than the opponent's. But with that, we do in fact bag our second victory. Let's go and move on to game number 4. All right, game number 4, white pieces, and we get the drawback, stop stalling. Your pieces can't move laterally. I am not against this drawback whatsoever because it fully rewards me just attacking the king straight up from the very beginning. There are lots of drawbacks that I've played in this drawback series where the options are twofold. You can either full send an attack immediately before the drawback kicks in or ruins your position, or you can try and work around the drawback. And oftentimes I go for the wild attack that hopefully just takes down the opponent. But that's not always the most popular approach because again, you could slowly try and maneuver around the drawback and it oftentimes is feasible. But I like attacking and I like it a lot. Okay, here we get bishop to d7. I think the opponent was trying to play a super normal game and pretend like everything was handy dandy a-okay, but instead ended up having to play bishop d7 for some reason. Why, I'm not quite sure yet. Let's just take on c6. But in any case, my very advanced, complicated scholar's mate is still underway. Pawn takes back. This is really amusing. Let's go queen to f3. If they don't stop this mate, I will definitely capture that king. Okay, knight comes out to play. Let's go knight to h3, look for knight to g5. Wait, if I can't move laterally, does that mean, oh, I can't castle? I mean, that'd be nice to centralize my rook. Can I negotiate with my drawback? Please, I want to attack the king. I don't want to move laterally. I just want to castle. I don't think it's listening. Okay, pawn to e6. How to continue here? Let's go d4. Just play super aggressive. I'm going to unearth that king if I have to do it with my bare hands. Bishop to e7 means they're probably going to castle. Nice. We do in fact get castling on the board, so now I can play a knight to g5, and I'm actually okay with leaving my king in the center of the board because the rook no longer needs to be there, right? Instead, let's go h4. If pawn takes, I take back with my pawn. Rook gets a beautiful open file to look down. Wow, they don't even accept my gambit though. We get knight to d5 instead. Okay, can I move my bishop back? I can. Okay, so laterally doesn't include diagonally. It just means directly orthogonally. In which case, I'm just going to drop the bishop back to d3. If they want to trade, that's okay. I'll take back with my pawn, but the attack stays totally intact. The problem is, even though they haven't accepted the gambit, they can't even take with the bishop because then I can still take with the pawn and the rook still gets the open file. Okay, knight goes back to f6. They really don't want me to attack their king, which of course means that I'm going to do whatever it takes to attack that king. Let's go knight to e4 next. If they take, I take back with the queen. There's a checkmate set up. On the other hand, if I take back with the queen, there's f5, and then I just have to move my queen back, which is kind of lame and fortifies their defenses. So maybe if they take, I just take back with the knight and look for g4, g5. Whoa, bishop goes back to c8. Not sure what that does. Let's take on f6. I have the horrible feeling this opponent has an abysmal drawback, and I'm gonna feel so bad for them when I see the info screen. Oh, queen takes on d4. I can just take the king, and with that, we do in fact win our third game, game number 4. Let's go and pop up the info board. Okay, we did in fact win. We took our opponent's king. Our opponent's drawback was comfort zone. Oh, if you can move to d4, you must. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you know that I love to play the London system, so somehow that pawn, even subconsciously, always ends up on d4. Wow, that was horrible timing too, because I think they were just setting up the attack so that they could sort of get it off the board, but I happened to take the knight on that exact turn, putting them in check and losing them the game. With that, we do in fact get all 3 victories. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I know I haven't played drawback chess in a very long time. I'm also going to go back to playing some variants because I have some interesting ideas that I'd like to try out. Let me know down below if there's anything specific that you'd like me to try with drawback chess. Also, just a quick little personal plug. There are no ads on the website, but you can go to iwantcheckmate.com and play some of the bots that I've played on the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.